There we go. Okay, everybody, we're live. So let's talk about today's lessons. Today we're talking about division of polynomials. So we know how to add, we know how to subtract, we know how to multiply, but division is a little bit tricky. So I started with just a plain old division problem from like 4th grade math, right? So 5 into 1,262. We know 5 goes into 12 two times. We subtract, we get a 2, we bring down the 6. 5 goes into 26 5 times, we get 25. We subtract, get a 1. Bring down the 1, 5 goes into 11 2 times, and then we get a remainder, okay? So what we do with the remainders, we don't say remainder. We know that the answer is 252 with a 1/5. So the remainder is 1 out of 5, and that is our answer. Well, when we do polynomials, we divide in the same way. So we're going to divide 6x cubed minus 3x squared plus 12x minus 18 by a 3x. So I'm going to divide the same way. So 3x goes into 6x cubed 2x times. So when I multiply that times that, I get a 6x cubed. I subtract, and I get 0. So then I go to the next term. I go 3x into a negative 3x squared is a negative 1x. Then I multiply those two, and I get a negative 3x. I subtract, and 0. Then 3x goes into 12x 4 times, because 4 times 3x is 12x. Okay. I subtract, and I get 0. And then I bring down the 18. Now 3x will not go into 18. Okay, so if I try and divide 18 by 3x, it does not divide because you can't divide by x. Okay, so that's my remainder is negative 18. So I go negative 18 over what I divided by my 3x. Now, here's my answer, and I just reduced. So I just reduce this, so I get a 2x squared minus 1x plus 4. And then I reduce that negative 18 over 3x into just a negative 6 over x. Okay? Okay, number 2 is a little bit different because of the 2x minus 1. Okay, so we have to divide by both, 2x minus 1. Okay? So I took my 2x minus 1 and divided it into a 2x squared plus a 12x minus 4. And then when I divide it, I divide the 2x. Don't worry about the 1 yet. 2x goes into 2x squared, 1x times. Okay, now I divide it by both, so here's how I bring it in. I multiply 1x times 2x, and I multiply 1x times 1. So I now have to bring them both in here, okay? So I get a 2x squared and a 1x. Now when I subtract, easiest way to do it is think about adding a negative. So I subtract it by changing their signs. Added a negative, so I had to be careful here. That changes that to a positive 1x. Add, I get 13x, okay, just like above, we bring down the 4. Okay, now 2x goes into 13, well, it goes 6.5 times. If you're not sure, you can do a little bit of math on the side, but it is 6.5. So then I multiply 6.5 times 2x is a 13x, 6.5 times negative 1 is a negative 6.5. When I subtract, it's like adding a negative, so I change the signs, that cancels, and I get positive 2.5 as my remainder. So I take my remainder and I make it into a fraction. It's 2.5 over what I divided by, and there's my answer. Okay? All right. On the back side, we just did one a little bit bigger. This one had a little trick into it. We had to be careful because there was no x cubed. So I'm going to take and divide 2x to the 4th minus 15x squared minus 10x plus 5 by x minus 3. Okay, so when I divide it, again, I got to divide by the x. Don't worry about the negative 3. We're bringing in. So x goes to 2x to the 4th, 2x cubed times. So then I multiply that times that. 2x cubed times x is a 2x 4th. And 2x cubed times negative 3 is a negative 6x. Now when I try to subtract here, remember I changed the signs. I'm going to add a negative. That's an x cubed and that's an x squared. So you can't really subtract those. So I brought down the 6x cubed and brought the 15x squared down here. It might have almost been easier if I put a 0x cubed in here. That's right. So then I divide it again. X goes in x cubed, 6x cubed, 6x squared, and then I multiply. Okay, that times that makes a 6x cubed. That times that makes a negative 18x. Again, I'm going to subtract, but adding a negative is like subtracting, so I change the signs. And that cancels, and I get a negative 15 plus 18 to make a positive 3x squared. Okay, right now, bring down the next term. Okay, so bring down the next term, and then I'm going to take x into 3x squared. Has to go in a 3x times. So 3x times x is a 3x squared, but I also have to multiply it times the negative 3. So I get a negative 9x. Okay, if I subtract, it's like add a negative, so I change the signs. And I get that cancels, and I get a positive 1x. no, negative 1x, sorry. And then again, I'm bring down the next term, then again I'm dividing. X goes into negative 1x, x goes into negative 1x, negative 1 time, and then I multiply, again a negative 1x, and I get a positive 3, but again, I'm subtracting, so it's like adding a negative, so I change the signs, I get a positive x and a negative 3, they cancel, and I get a remainder of 2. The remainder goes as part of a fraction on what you divided by, so here's my answer, 2x cubed plus 6x squared plus 3x minus 1, and then I go plus my remainder, which is 2 out of my x minus 3. Okay, that's all I had, and here's our homework for the night, okay? All right, I will see you tomorrow.